Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Sheila Speaks, a podcast designed to educate, empower, inspire, uplift, and impact your life. Sheila Speaks is taking on a special series. I'll be having this conversation over the next few weeks with Jean Lloyd, cultural architect and expert in this field. And I'm going to start off, first of all, by welcoming you, Jean. How are you?
I am excellent. How are you?
I am great. And Jean and I have been creating this conversation, and we're going to call it George Floyd. Let's talk. Let's talk about it. And I'm going to start with asking and having Jean really share with us why this conversation? Why are we having this conversation? And why are we having it now? Go ahead, Jean, and welcome.
Hey, everybody. So we're having this conversation for a number of reasons. I think it's really about taking a situation in real life that's impacting us and beginning to look at it from a very different angle than where we would normally be looking from. We're going to call this the Great Experiment.
All right.
And the reason why we're calling it that is we're going to ask you to really start looking from a whole nother realm as it relates to the impact of life on our communities, circumstances on our communities, and then start to pull it apart enough where we're not, yes, we're impacted, but we're not paralyzed.
Yeah.
Where we can start to think about what actions we want to take, how we want to be for each other, and what kind of future we want to build. And why we're calling this the Great Experiment is because this is a very, very, very reactivating situation, the George Floyd murder, and then the trial with the officer that committed the crime. For the most part, we kind of get caught up and very emotional and upset. And I got to tell you something, it is emotionally upsetting.
Yes, it is.
It is devastating. It is heartbreaking. And it's very graphic, just like life is.
All right, Jean, very well said. I mean, very well communicated. And it is upsetting. I know I recently shared with a friend of mine of a different shade of color. And, I really had to get them to get. One of the things about it, or about this, is that this would never, ever, ever happen to your son. Ever. But it could happen to mine. So this is really important that we have this conversation, and where we want to start with, and let's just engage in this for a minute, is the facts, just the facts, like the real what happened.
Yeah.
Because as we're watching this trial, and you alerted me to this, and I really thank you for it, there was just so much that the world, no one had ever seen, like that we didn't even know. I mean, I was gone when I saw him in the store playing, laughing, grabbing a banana. And then the next 20 minutes, gone to glory.
Yeah, see, that's the reason why I was thinking if we can slow it down a bit.
Okay.
And support people on how to start looking at the things that show up in life that are jolting.
Yeah.
The things that show up in life that are sudden and unplanned. Like on Memorial Day last year, this happened, right? Among many, many things that are happening that involve the taking of life. We've had, 4 shootings, mass shootings in the last week. So it's sort of like this experiment is about, can we slow it down enough to be able to consider what we want and what we don't want and start looking at a plan. In other words, you're there. Now, what would you do?
Yes.
you're dealing with something unforeseen and unplanned. What would you do if you were on that sidewalk where George Floyd is on the ground? It's beginning to consider that there's always something we can learn from even the worst situations. And maybe particularly in the worst situations that we're not necessarily involved in. So one of the things in this great experiment, we're looking to see, can we bring our humanity to it and then distinguish what we can do as a possibility for the future? So we're looking not just to react, we're looking from, okay, now what? Who will we be?
What will we do? Yes, no, go ahead.
So
go ahead, please.
When Freddie Gray died, I did a lot of work here in Baltimore, Maryland, to begin to bring together people, the police officers, policing community, and everybody that was committed to the future of our communities thriving. And we had judges, and we had housewives, and we had in a television studio, really looking from, okay, but I'm a critical stakeholder in this conversation. I got something to say about the future of my community. And I got to start to consider that someone died in my community and his name is Freddie Gray. Now what? So that's what we want to do in this great experiment, is to create a forum in which you can weigh in and we can start to bring what it looks like to live a transformed life rather than just react. So
yes, and what it looks
that's
like.
Why we're here.
Yeah, no, this is really great. What it looks like to live a transformed life as an exploration, not from something you should do or something you already know. You already have, we don't already have the answer. If we had the answer, we would be living that way. And it's not enough that a few of us live a particular way now. We're all in this together.
That's right.
So
we're not going to have this be a black and white conversation.
No.
We have a lot of people in that conversation already, and they're doing groundbreaking thinking around it. It is necessary to look at how we're related to culture and from people who don't look like us or act like us. We have tons of people doing that. This is a different conversation. This is about how to live an everyday life when life is coming at you point blank.
Yes. And on that note, on May 25th, 2020, life was coming at George Floyd point blank. So let's step back and start taking this thing apart. And don't worry, guys, we're going to spend some time. Jean Lloyd and I are both powerfully engaged in this trial as stakeholders in our future, as stakeholders for what's possible for this country, for you, for I, and for the world. So let's just start with that day, Jean. You want to create it? So what happened?
Well, let's look at it like this. So we're looking at a trial.
Yes.
And the trial is set up where you have the prosecution brings up their witnesses, and then they get cross-examined sometimes by the defense, and then the defense brings up their witnesses, and then they get cross-examined by the prosecution. You know, both sides start to show just their evidence. So right now we're in day 5, and they're just laying the groundwork of everything that happened that day. Now, here's the part that's interesting. They're doing it from many, many points of view. So you're seeing it from the body cams from all the officers, which are at this point 4 points of view. Then you're seeing it from there's about a dozen people on the sidewalk, and each of them have a point of view. and have taken pictures or footage. Okay, so that's the other point of view. Many points of view from people just standing on the sidewalks.
And then the other point, yeah, and the other point of view is us who now are observing.
That's right.
And fully engaged in it. Yeah, no, so that's great. Yeah, keep going.
So you want to keep, so you got to keep, you want to pay attention to, there's never one point of view. There are many, many points of view. Now, you want to also consider that there are surveillance cameras in that neighborhood.
Yes.
Those cameras have an entirely different point of view. They're high up on a pole and they're looking right down into the heart of the situation. Yeah. And you can see even more in the point of view, right? So this is a very different world than you turn on the television set and there's a crime, story, Law and Order SUV. That is not real life. That is drama. This is real life. Yes. And then there are people in the store behind them that have a point of view too. When you start to put all of these points of view together, which one is right and which one is wrong, right? That's how life is. Which one is right, which one is wrong, right? So in this great experiment that we're doing here, we're going to be putting actual footage, few minutes, few seconds. You're gonna look at that, and then we are going to have a conversation about what's right there and begin to create something with you. And then we're going to give you a chance that are watching an opportunity to weigh in. And we're with the whole possibility of now what? For this world to work and for our communities to work, now what? And start to, rather than stay distant from it, start to impact it. Yes. And expanding this conversation, and Jean is absolutely on point with what she's sharing, what she's creating. You want to keep expanding it to your engagement, your participation. We participated in a way like we never have. And the state of Georgia went from red to blue. And then now we've got to do the work of, well, wait a minute, and the thinking and the probing. Who is a United States Senator? What are they responsible for? How do I impact how I'm going to live my life in this country? Especially since now they passed a bill to suppress that voter rights. And this is great. And getting responsible for that we, us have a say. Right. So what are you saying? We can't sit back on anything. Anymore. And, I'm already seeing some of the future, but we're not going to start at the future. We're going to build ourselves up. But you got to get yourself engaged enough and pulling this conversation to you because it matters. Well, wait a minute. What is the governor's job? Why are 8 people behind, or however many it was, behind closed doors signing a bill? And somebody in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, and then a congresswoman comes up and just knocks on the door to ask to be entered and goes to jail for it. Now, you see, you can just get all caught up in that, right? Yes. But here's the thing, the bill has been signed. What actions are the people in the community going to take? Yeah, it's like, now what? To stand for a reversal of that law or a new law? What are we prepared to do? There's far more of us, and we can tell that this world is turning around because people are taking action. So reversal of that law, removal of that law, maybe even removal of your governor. See, we gotta say, everybody better wake up, as I say, and smell the country.
We do
Yeah.
have a say. So we've
And-
got to also look at how things work. And then this conversation, because it's an experiment, we may discover none of it works. And we have to throw it all out.
Right.
All of it. But I'm,
here's
you know, I'm just saying, in an experiment, isn't that how experiments go, Jean?
yeah, it is. This is definitely an experiment.
All
But
right, good.
but it doesn't mean it doesn't work either just because it's an
That's
experiment.
true. That's
But
true.
the part that we're interested in is we can start getting your voice. We can start to see what is there for you and what may be getting in the way of your being someone who feels like you have a say and take some actions around it. So the part of it is to be able to de-escalate.
Yes.
Okay, because while these things are unjust and they don't work, they're still in our community. So now we want to start looking at what are we going to do about it? And
Good.
it doesn't mean that you need to become president of the United States, because here's the truth: you got more power than the president of the United States, and you don't know it. So if we start looking from a different view, I think you'll start to see all over your life places where if you were to think it through, you would find a way.
Beautiful. All right. So on that note, let's spend a few minutes in this conversation about the actual trial and what's happening. It's funny, I started this about 10 minutes ago, but you know, it's okay. And to the actual, what happened that day.
Right. The day of George Floyd's death?
Yes.
Okay, so the day of his death, if you look at the raw footage, there's a certain sequence to it. It's Memorial Day.
Yep.
And he's gone into Cup Foods, and he's looking to purchase some items. I believe he bought a pack of cigarettes. He also had his phone needed repairing.
Banana. Yeah.
Right. And so he just picked up a few items, and he was in a great mood. He was having a conversation with them. And then he handed them a $20 bill. And then the cashier looked at it, held it up to the light, and said, "Thank you." Right? He leaves, goes across the street, gets in his van where his friends are waiting, and they're sitting there. Then the people in the store come out to tell him that the bill is counterfeit and that they either need the bill, they need him to pay for the cigarettes. Right? In the meanwhile, now he's actually not speaking back to them because he's like this in the car, leaning back with his hands on his head. And the people that came out of the store are actually talking to the other gentleman in the front seat that had been in the store earlier with a counterfeit bill. And he refuses to get out, and he refuses to come back in the store. Then the individuals from Cup Foods that work there, the staff, go back inside. There was 3 of them at that point. They talk to the manager. The manager says, "No, you need to go back and you need to either get the bill or you got to get the money for the cigarettes. And they need to come with you if they're coming with that bill," right? They go back out, go back to the same, 2 of them are standing back. One of them goes around to this driver's side. And remember, they're not engaged with George Floyd. George Floyd is sitting there with his hands in his head and kind of mumbling like, "Oh God, why is this happening?" Right? And then he again refuses to get out of the car. The gentleman with the white shirt on and red slacks. And he says, "Well, where's the money? Where's the counterfeit money?" He said, "Well, I threw it on the ground." So pick it up. And they asked him to come inside. He says, "No, we're not coming inside. No, we're not giving you any
Who
money."
said that though? George
The
or
gentleman on the passenger side, I think his name is Hall, Mr. Hall.
That's right.
And there's a woman in the back seat, but she's not saying anything. They go back inside and they call the manager says, "Call the police." Call the police. The police arrive. So there ends up being 4 officers and 2 squad cars. Then the officers are told, they go into the Cup Foods and they say, oh, he's in it. The manager walks outside and said, there's their van over there. They're just sitting over there, and he comes back inside quickly. Never really walks all the way out, just kind of opens the door and points, goes right back to what he was doing. And the police officers, 2 of them at that point, are going over to his car, and one of them just immediately takes his gun out and points it at George Floyd. George Floyd is startled, rolls down the window, he shakes his head like, what? Lets down the window, what's going on, officer? Get out of the car now. They then put him in handcuffs. He's like, what happened? What happened? You know what happened. And they're cursing, F-bombs to be exact. And he's like startled. And then they walk him quietly across the street. He's going along, he's doing what they ask, walks across the street. He's still asking questions like, what's going on? And then meanwhile, the other officer is having a conversation with the 2 in the car. They want the IDs, etc. And they're answering the questions. Remember, the gentleman that's over there is the gentleman that originally came in with the first counterfeit bill.
Yeah.
George went in with the second counterfeit bill. The second counterfeit bill is in the store because the cashier kept that one. And then
let me say something. Yes, just for people listening, right now, what Jean is now sharing with us are the facts of what happened that day. Go ahead, Jean. Keep going.
So then they walk across the street there's a stoplight. There's a stoplight there, and they walk across the street, and the 2 officers are with him. He's following quietly, and then he gets over there, and they said, "Okay, get in the van. It's a van. It's a police van." And then they want him to get in there, and he said, "Whoa, I can't get in there." He says, "I'm claustrophobic. I have anxiety, and I'm too big." So they then proceed to try to shove him into the vehicle, and they're pushing him to get in the vehicle. There's a gentleman on the sidewalk at this time telling George, calm down, you're not gonna win. They got cuffs on you. Once you get cuffs, it's really over. He says, I'm not trying to win. Then the other 2, this is when I believe Detective Chauvin shows up wanting to know what's going on. So now we have 2 more officers there. So you have 4 total.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I didn't realize Chauvin wasn't already there.
He's in a different car.
Got it. So I know you haven't shared this but the rookies were the ones who were trying to put him in that van. In my view, he was way too big for it. But go ahead. I got it now. So
he's trying to tell them that because the van itself, it's not a regular van, like a van. It has a cage to it. So it has a small back seat, and he's over 6 feet tall. And he's also told them he's been shot before in a similar situation. And he says, I can't get in there. And he starts to have a panic attack. Literally, he's breathing and tell him, I can't breathe. And they're still shoving him in that back of that van. They're trying to get him in the van. Once they get him in the van, they can go take him over to the precinct. But then once they get him in, they pull him out on the other side because he's so panicked. Remember, there was a gun up to the window where he had started to panic then, but he let him handcuff him. So he let him know he's not trying to fight him. He's just anxious.
Well, not only is he anxious, he has no idea even why. And what's really happening?
He doesn't know that bill
Was
was
counterfeit.
fake. He had no idea. So then he goes around, they pull him out on the other side and put him on the ground. He says, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And that's when people start to gather on the sidewalk. That's when they pick him up from the ground because the truth is he's sitting right in front. They have him sitting on the ground in front of the store.
Yeah,
They pick him up, and once they try to shove him in the van, they can't close. He is really freaking out. They pull him out on the other side instead of just securing the doors and taking him to the precinct. They sit him outside, and that's when he gets put on his stomach. The two officers are holding him down below his torso, below his waist, and Derek Chauvin has his knee in his neck. And he starts to say all the things, mama, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And there's a sequence of I can't breathe for a period of time along with mama.
27 times.
Tell him I love my children. Excuse me?
27 times.
Oh, yeah. And so the amount of time was actually longer than 8 minutes. It was over 9 minutes that he had his knee there. And he still had his knee on him when the van came up. The emergency medical team shows up. He still had his knee on his neck, even with the cuffs on, while they were trying to get him up on the gurney. Meanwhile, you have, by this time, I would say around a dozen people shouting, trying to get the attention of the officer that they can see that his life is slipping away. They're making all kinds of comments with regard to that. And you can tell.
Let me say, hold on, right there, I just want to say a few things. The kinds of comments they were making, if you didn't see it, was his nose was bleeding. He had foam at the mouth. His mouth had white foam coming out. And the crowd was literally watching his life being, him slipping away.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was very graphic if you have not seen the entire video. All right,
now,
go ahead.
So then before they've even put him on the gurney and he's still in, the officer still has his foot in the neck, the emergency medical team took his pulse and looked in his eyes. He still had cuffs on, and they put him on the gurney, and one of the medical team took the cuffs off, not the police officers.
Wow.
Now, here's the thing you want to know that I just demonstrated. I'm not saying that everything I said was absolutely accurate, word for word, what happened. What I was really demonstrating to you is the facts. You didn't hear me add my take on it. You didn't see me trying to determine who is guilty, who's not guilty, just the facts. One of the first things about what we're going to be doing is looking at what actually happened and then being able to start to create something where you start to see yourself and your relationship to this and what you could possibly do, not about George Floyd, but about what you could be doing in your communities, what you could be doing in your life in situations where it gives you pause.
So Jean, everything you said was very powerful. You gave us the facts. You even gave us facts that I missed and I watched it. See, I never caught that Chauvin wasn't there initially. Okay, so just for myself. So what we want to do now, because this is an introduction to a conversation that we'll be having and engaged in over the next few weeks. Jean and I are both going to let you know how you can see this, you know, who we are, how you can contact us. And what we want to talk about for a few minutes now is our mine and Jean's actual view, so that then you can look at what view you have. You could do it, my reaction, my upset, and you could do that. You'll start to have access to something when you can look at this as your view and just your view. And so she and I are going to share ours with you right now. So Jean, what would you like to say about all this so far?
Well, I've been watching it substantial amount of time for I would say I've seen about 80% of this trial, and it's on day 5.
Yes.
And I can tell you the amount of disappointment and hurt is real for me. And I sit there and I look at, I am not a Black man. And I will never be a Black man. I will never know that terror. But during this trial, I've seen the terror. I've seen the downright despair in ways I've never seen it before. And it makes me want to be somebody to impact that kind of experience in any human being's soul, and particularly with Black males, because I'm Black. And I was so deeply moved by people who didn't know him. And they were fighting for him on that sidewalk.
That's
they
right.
Were fighting for him. I mean, when I first saw the footage, I had this ridiculous comment, like, why are they just standing there? When you see all these angles and you see all that was going on, I don't know if I would have done any different. You know, I mean, I can tell you now, after the fact, what I would have done. That's why I was thinking this is an opportunity for us to start to confront what we need to do, who we need to be, and not be paralyzed by situations, but be able to bring power to them. But when I start to watch, and I watch George Floyd, as much as I want to say I'm humane, I saw a whole nother level of humanity that I had access to that I didn't have access to before.
Yeah.
And I also got clear about we're losing our humanity at levels that I didn't realize the depth of it. So if you think I wasn't impacted, if you think I wasn't heartbroken, if you think I just can be cold about it, no, I'm not cold and detached about it at all. I'm going to bring leadership to it.
Right.
And that's why I'm here. And that's my view.
Awesome. You know, really great, Jean. And ditto to what you said. I know for myself, you know, I'm the mother of a Black male. And with George Floyd, I could authentically say, my son is 23. And for the first time, some of his complaints, reactions, upsets, despair, for the first time in my life as his mother, who loves him profoundly, I could actually hear my son.
In a whole nother way, right?
Whole nother way. And as a Black man and his experience, really, and I want, you know, I don't know about you, but a lot of even how I related to our men was from a concept. And I heard my son, and it transformed my relationship to my son. And then I really grew up in a conversation for the transformation of our community. And so for me, my view, as hard as this was, and my heart goes out to the George Floyd family, but to all families and to all our men and women in prison. And we'll get more into this as we go. But there is now an opportunity to really let go of, atone for some things that don't work, to right some wrongs in the world of right and wrong, that I don't quite mean it the way I say it, but I think you can get what I mean. In the world of right and wrong, we can right some things now that don't work, haven't worked, never worked, and have gone into a blind spot in society. So in lieu of the upset, the hurt, the pain, and please hear me the way in which I'm saying it, George Floyd died that we might live. And I do mean all of us, particularly in this country we call the United States of America. So on that note, I'm going to close it for today. Thank you for listening. You'll be able to hear this on my YouTube channel. Please become a subscriber. St. James Media YouTube channel. Also my website, stjamesmedia.com, our podcast. And Jean, please tell us how people can connect with you and see this conversation and be a part of it. How can we connect to you?
It's my YouTube channel, Jean Lloyd. And I also have a website called jeanlloyd.com, JeanLLoyd.com.
All right, great. Again, thank you so much for listening. Watch the trial. And I also want to add this. Listen, wear your mask, continue to wear your mask, social distance, and get vaccinated. God bless you and keep you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.